Notorious D. This is the Casual Wrestling Show, and it starts right now.
Notorious.
Big it up, big it up.
If I have learned anything from being a parent, it is that if you give your kid an inch, they will take a mile. And this is the time that Triple H and Nick Khan are the parents of the WWE audience. And during WrestleMania week, they took the time to exclaim to the entire world about how they were the strict parents in the wrestling world, and that we were the little children, and that the strict parents were going to make the rules going forward. And here we are, just a couple months removed from WrestleMania, and guess what? Mommy and Daddy were a bunch of pussies. Mommy and Daddy couldn't stand up on their own 2 feet long enough to make grown-up decisions. They were too scared to stand behind what they said during WrestleMania week. It was a stupid decision, albeit, but it's a decision they made to tell the wrestling world that they were the big bad bosses of WWE. And what did they do? This last week, they gave an inch, but instead they gave up a mile. WWE fans now realize that just like Tony Khan, who I've criticized in the past, who walks back on decisions when the fans begin to get loud, we now know WWE is just as sheepish. And this isn't a bad thing. This is just a realization, and we have to be honest with ourselves. But at least when Tony Khan does it, he's open about it. He says that the fans spoke. I have to do what the fans want. When Triple H tries to, really doesn't even try to, when Triple H walks something back, he almost tries to fold it into the storyline like it was something clever that he came up with. Instead of being the big bad bully, Triple H has to walk back with his tail between his legs. Bitch, we weren't born yesterday, Triple H. We know what happened. Talk about enjoy the story. Enjoy the story, my ass, Triple H. The only thing that I'm enjoying right now is the fact that you had to walk back on the tough guy act because you realized that this new age wrestling booking mentality is failing. It cannot be strictly about making money. So WWE brought back R-Truth because it's what the fans wanted. Now, this is the problem. This is the old Triple H switcheroo. This is the old I've got to put my stamp on everything. Triple H did bring back R-Truth, but he didn't bring Truth back as Truth. No, he brought him back as Ron Killings. Mark my word, casual wrestling fans, Ron Killings is not going to work. The world fell in love with R-Truth. It was the character, it was the shtick, it was the gimmick, and now you're going to come out and have R-Truth cut off his hair, which is cool, right? We're going to change the look. But what Triple H is about to do, Triple H is about to give Ron Killings 15 minutes of spotlight because this is Triple H and TKO's clever way of showing Ron Killings failing and then being able to go, see, it never worked. You guys were actually wrong. R-Truth can't be pushed. This was a clever play by TKO and Triple H to try to appease the fans and make the fans believe we gave you what we want. You just don't know what works. The reality is that R-Truth should have stayed R-Truth, and he should have been the guy to come back full circle and dethrone John Cena at the end of his run. That is what people actually wanted. If you had real balls, Triple H, you would have re-signed R-Truth, let him sit on the shelf, let the kind of anger fester within the wrestling community, and then bring him back at the right time. Bring him back to take out John Cena. This was not part of the story. This was panic moves. This version of R-Truth, this Ron Killings, is not going to work. WWE is in as much trouble as they were last week. They've just prolonged the kind of meltdown. They've put some Band-Aids on the boo-boos, and they keep playing this mental gymnastics game where they try to feed us bullshit. But in fact, they didn't fix anything. In fact, like I said, they prolonged a plan to cut guys loose on the roster. And if it was all a work, right? This was all a big work, Triple H. So I expect to see Valhalla and Carlito still have jobs as well. Because the reality is, it's kind of bullshit to fire certain people to make storylines feel more authentic. The reality is, you made a big mistake, and since you tried to lay your dick on the table during WrestleMania and talk about how tough you and Nick Khan are, the reality is you guys had to walk this back, and you guys don't know how to sincerely just walk something back. That's the reality. Speaking of cutting deep, 51 days after winning the World Heavyweight Championship at WrestleMania, Jey Uso's world title has come to an end, and the snooze general rises once again. Don't be shocked. Don't be shocked by this, guys. I told y'all in April that Jey Uso was a WrestleMania moment, and it was a play to just get that 80,000 people yeeting at one time, and that's really what it was, and that we should immediately start looking at where is Jey Uso going to drop this title, because it's going to happen sooner rather than later. And according to the IWC, WWE has no faith in Jey Uso as champion. That's why this is happening. I'm going to side with my boy Milwaukee Mike on this one. I think it's literally the opposite of what the IWC is saying. I think that WWE knows deep down inside Jey Uso does not need a world title to be relevant on WWE programming. He can put it on his resume, but he does not need it to be a solid functioning part of Monday Night Raw. Jey Uso is an event within himself. Jey Uso can fight bigger causes. He can go after a new bloodline. He could maybe save a Raw tag team division that seems to be in a little disarray if he reunites with Jim Uso. Jey could even save us from the Wyatt Six if he makes a trip over to SmackDown. But Mike asked the question on Discord that I think is very fair. Can Gunther be the guy to lead Monday Night Raw as a world champion? And I think that we saw glimpses at the end of this first run before WrestleMania where it looked like Gunther can be a legitimate champion for Monday Night Raw. But the reality to me is I don't think this is a long-term play when it comes to Gunther. I think this is more of a setup for what's to come in the future. I think that more than likely, Gunther is setting up for a fight against Goldberg. I think he walks through Goldberg. He wins that. We say goodbye to Goldberg. And then I think at King of the Ring, I'm not going to spoil who I think it is just yet, but I think he takes on the King of the Ring winner, and I think he drops the belt for another feel-good moment. So to answer Mike's question, I don't foresee Gunther necessarily being the guy either going forward. I think we're going to see a little bit of a bounce around with the World Heavyweight Championship, and I'm not mad at that. I actually like the idea of a title bouncing around a little bit to give it a little bit more authenticity moving forward. So speaking on future champions, I haven't had a chance to give my thoughts on Money in the Bank and who came out with the briefcases this past weekend. I think it's a pretty seamless kind of consensus that Naomi was the right choice when it came to the women's side. I'm in agreement here that she's killing it right now. She absolutely is in the position to be a future world champion, especially as she kind of talks about the limited time she has left when it comes to wrestling. So I think that she immediately gets boosted by having the briefcase, and there's a ton of possibilities and directions you could go when it comes to Naomi. I did have Roxanne winning this just because I thought that TKO was kind of infusing the young blood, but it doesn't seem that's necessarily where they're going either. So I like Naomi. On the men's side, though, I think there was one of three guys that I legitimately had walking away with the case at this point. If I'm being honest, I think LA Knight was a possibility. I think that Seth Rollins was always in play. And then there was this long shot where El Grande Americano could actually win the title and we might pay attention. But they went the safe route with Seth Rollins, which I'm okay with. I don't think that always the vanilla choice is always the wrong choice. I think it's going to play into a longer story here. I think we are building towards the era of Braun Breaker, and I think we will look back and see this as that first chapter. I think it's a little bit silly when the IWC overreacts to vanilla choices and they call them negative, because if there's one thing I've learned, it's not to overreact to these stories until we get to the end and we're able to see them kind of as a full story and what the Seth Rollins win means in the bigger picture. I would have loved for El Grande Americano to win the briefcase, but ultimately, I don't know where that leads if you're WWE. I don't know what you can do with that. I think the better play with El Grande is I'd like to see El Grande Americano win the AAA championship. I think that would be fun. I think it gives a lot of people a reason to watch AAA wrestling, and I think it would piss off the IWC, which might be my new favorite thing to do on a weekly basis. But LA Knight seemed to be the favorite going into the match. I think maybe that was a little too obvious at this point. And like I said, I think Seth Rollins winning Money in the Bank is kind of a de facto way to get to Braun Breaker being champion. You might have to stick with me on that mindset, but I do believe that's where we're headed. If I had to guess right now, if I just had to throw out there when Braun Breaker could be the World Heavyweight Champion, I think at WrestleMania 42, we could easily see Seth Rollins versus Braun Breaker for the World Heavyweight Championship. I do believe that is a big possibility to see that as one of the marquee matches. But I think it's silly how quickly the IWC turns on Seth Rollins when he gets on a hot streak. They love him. You know, it's like this, the IWC loves when guys are down. They love Seth Rollins when he's getting beat down and he's being held down by, TKO and shit like that. But the reality is I think that the IWC just really loves losers. That's more of the reality than anything. But speaking of losers, the IWC have lost their brains on this idea that CM Punk might actually wrestle in Saudi Arabia for Night of Champions. And it's like, here's the problem, right? Oh my God. You mean CM Punk made a comment a few years ago, and now he's never allowed to walk that back. He's never allowed to do anything that contradicts that statement that he made to The Miz. If that is the case, IWC, y'all say a lot of stupid shit, and y'all shouldn't be allowed to talk about anything on the internet because the shit you say is always wrong. Here's a news flash for the IWC. People change. People change their opinions. Sometimes just your stance on things soften a little bit. It doesn't mean you don't care, but it just means that you say a lot of shit when you're angry and you're defensive. And on top of that, CM Punk has a job to do. He works for WWE, and it is not as easy as some people think to tell your employer to go fuck off. I'm not going to show up for work. So at the end of the day, you're an employee for a company that has asked you to show up in Saudi Arabia. The reality is you can lose your job, you can get on bad graces with the company, or you can show up begrudgingly or happily, and you can do the job. But his stance could have softened IWC. Punk has been a pretty solid advocate for a lot of these causes, a lot that I agree with, a lot that I do not absolutely agree with, but he has tended to take a stance on a lot of things, and I don't think him fluctuating on one thing should be seen as this big outcry of CM Punk being a hypocrite. It is stupid to all of a sudden start to shame him because he's ultimately doing his job. And wherever WWE asks him to go, he's going to go wrestle. He can wrestle and still disagree with what is going on. That's the reality. He doesn't need to destroy this Night of Champions card to take a stance. But the more important thing is that we're getting a hell of a feud, IWC. And if you weren't so blinded by stupid politics in wrestling, you could come to see that we're getting the final chapter of John Cena and CM Punk, and it's going to be a masterclass on what two guys who by every stretch of what you can measure in wrestling, these guys are too old, they're over the top, they're not in the best physical shape of their life, and they're still going to put on a master class of what professional wrestling can be. If you pay attention to IWC, you might actually learn something about the psychology and the storytelling of professional wrestling. Cena versus Punk for the final time. Just embrace it, IWC. Stop politicking our wrestling. Just let it be. It is the one place right now where politics shouldn't matter. Our professional wrestling. Just let it be wrestling. Or IWC, just don't watch it. I'm good with that as well. But complaining on X and Blue Sky does not do shit but make you look like a bunch of whiny little bitches. Just lock in, enjoy the story. John Cena, CM Punk for the final time. It's going to be magic. All right, it's time for a lightning round. 5 minutes on the clock, 3 topics. Let's hit them quickly. There's a rumor floating around right now that TKO is looking to rework Roman Reigns' contract, and the IWC seems to think that Roman Reigns is not worth the money that he gets. Here is the issue, right? This is the issue for TKO, IWC. I'm about to school you on how business and competition works. I understand. It looks to the average person like Roman Reigns gets a lot of money to show up for 4 or 5 dates a year, and you go, that's money that you could spend on a lot of other things. But when there's other wrestling companies in the world, like AEW, that are willing to write that same check, more than likely to get a guy like Roman Reigns, because Roman Reigns is the ultimate game changer when it comes to ratings. When there's a guy that exists like that, you pay whatever you have to pay just to make sure he stays a member of the WWE universe. That's what you have to do. Vince McMahon did it with Brock Lesnar. We've done it with The Rock. You can't afford to let these guys go show up somewhere else. The threat of Roman Reigns showing up on another wrestling show should be enough to put the fear in TKO that you pay him whatever he wants. To be honest, I'd pay him more money. I think Roman Reigns is worth more money than you're giving him. And if you paid him enough money that Hollywood didn't look like the better option, he might actually show up more than 4 or 5 times a year. Pay Roman Reigns what he's worth. This is how sports work. This is one of the problems with wrestling is we tend to try to cap what a guy can make, but a guy like Roman Reigns probably should be making professional athlete money. He should be making Hollywood type money to show up 4 or 5 times a year. I absolutely think that is okay. The consensus I see right now about Worlds Collide is mostly positive. I've scaled the internet, I've looked through it, and I've seen a lot of the IWC who have actually approved of it. But there's this small pocket right now of the IWC fans who are flipping out. They're beginning to cry. They're coming after WWE fans saying, how could WWE fans watch a show of mostly unknown wrestlers that do a lot of flips? And I think it's a stupid comparison because, number one, it works off this assumption that we've never watched AEW. Most of us that are WWE fans have attempted to watch AEW. We couldn't connect with that product. But the bigger interesting point that I think needs to be made here is AAA does not have fans that are trying to gatekeep the product. And so this is not feeling like it's shoved down our throats, and it's not feeling like the learning curve and the gatekeeping exist. The problem with AEW is this group of narcissistic, obnoxious fans that gatekeep the company. I saw a tweet the other day, someone saying, should we allow WWE fans to come over or should we gatekeep it? You guys already gatekeep it. It's what you do. And Tony Khan's here pleading with his fan base, talking about, no, let these people come in. And what happened with AAA was all of a sudden WWE fans were introduced to a product that is now owned by WWE, but it is a very different product. And we went, this could be fun. And instead of having to watch a pompous, curly-headed autistic fuck who claims to be the best wrestler in the world, We were watching a guy who carries around an iguana and looked real happy to be there. We watched a guy named Vikingo or something like that who literally went toe-to-toe with Chad Gable, who I will continue to say is the best wrestler in the entire world. So I'm sorry, AEW fans, that this confuses you, but you guys seem to be the problem with why WWE fans won't get excited about AEW. Lastly here, fans seem to be excited about the return of Bayley, and the rumor is that she could possibly be getting a new theme song next week, created by Paramore, which has been a bit of a dream for Bayley for a long time. I will say this. I've never been the most critical of Def Rebel because I don't think the music is as bad as a lot of people seem to think. The IWC tends to be pretty critical of Def Rebel. I think he hit some home runs. He's done a few songs that are absolutely epic and good or great theme songs. I will say for the most part, we get a lot of generic music that sounds the same, and it's very mundane and it's hard to differentiate. But he does hit a few home runs. But count me in if we're actually shifting into an era where we're going to start getting actual real artists creating WWE theme songs like Metro Boomin, like Paramore. I think there's the rumor of Limp Bizkit doing Braun Breaker's theme song. Count me in. I love this idea, especially if these people are genuinely excited to participate in the experience of making theme songs. I think that, to me, this could be ultimately a great situation for WWE. All right, so it's time for one last take here. My final take of the night here is going to be my King of the Ring way too early predictions. So we already know that in match 1 of the women's tournament, we're getting Roxanne Perez moving forward. That leaves us with match 2, 3, and 4, which is match 2 is Jade Cargill, Michin, Piper Niven, and Nia Jax. Match 3 is Charlotte Flair, Alexa Bliss, Chelsea Green, and Candice LeRae. Match 4 is the return of Asuka, Stephanie Vaquer, Raquel Rodriguez, and I'm not sure who the last person was. I forgot. I wrote something down here, but I cannot read what I wrote. But we'll just run through this pretty quickly here. I think we got Roxanne Perez moving on in match 1. In match 2, I think we're getting Jade Cargill. I think ultimately there's nobody else on that list. Last time, I think Nia Jax beat Jade Cargill for the Queen of the Ring tournament. I think this year Jade moves forward. In match 3, we've got Charlotte Flair, Alexa Bliss, Chelsea Green, and Candice LeRae. Give me Chelsea Green moving on in that match. As crazy as it sounds with Charlotte Flair in that match, I think there's tension pulling between Alexa Bliss and Charlotte Flair, so they'll pull themselves out. Candice LeRae is not winning this thing, so give me Chelsea Green moving forward because I think she's a long shot to actually win Queen of the Ring. And then in match 4, Asuka, Stephanie Vaquer, Raquel Rodriguez, and whatever I wrote down there, not sure what that is. Give me Asuka's a long shot to win it as she's returning. There's a world where I could see them starting something between Asuka and Stephanie Vaquer because of the level of wrestling you're going to get. But they're too big right now on Stephanie Vaquer not to have her win this match and get out of the first round. Give me Stephanie Vaquer coming out of the first round here. So that leaves me on one side with Roxanne and Jade, and on the other side you've got Chelsea Green and Stephanie Vaquer. Give me Jade Cargill beating Roxanne, even though I like Roxanne. I'd like Roxanne to win this. I don't think it's the time, especially not against a Jade Cargill. And give me Chelsea Green knocking off Stephanie Vaquer, maybe due to some secret Hervis shenanigans. I think because I don't think Stephanie Vaquer is winning this seems to me like the most legitimate spot where shenanigans could happen to remove her from the tournament without kind of hurting her character. So that leaves you with Jade Cargill versus Chelsea Green for the Queen of the Ring title. I think Jade Cargill wins it. I think it's time. I think Jade Cargill wins it. I think Jade Cargill will make a great Queen of the Ring moving forward. That'll give her a title shot, and I think they're ready to start getting the ball rolling with Jade Cargill a little bit. So give me Jade Cargill winning the women's side. On the men's side, We have Sami Zayn won his qualifying match. Match 2, we have Orton, LA Knight, Malachi Black, and Carmelo Hayes. Match 3, we have Cody Rhodes, Damian Priest, Andrade, Shinsuke Nakamura. Match 4, we have Sheamus, Rusev, Bronson Reed, and Jey Uso. Give me in match number 2. It's real easy to just go LA Knight or Randy Orton because of who they are. I think, though, we get a shocker here, and it's going to either be Malachi Black or Carmelo Hayes. I don't know which one they decide to ride with. It could be Randy Orton. Give me Carmelo Hayes in this one. There's no rhyme or reason other than I'd like to see Carmelo Hayes come out of this group, and I think he creates a interesting matchup in the second round for Sami Zayn. In match 3, Cody Rhodes, Damian Priest, Andrade, and Shinsuke Nakamura. I don't know. I just don't believe you have Cody Rhodes lose here. I think you have to have Cody Rhodes win this match. I think Cody moves on. In match 4, you have Sheamus, Rusev, Bronson Reed, and then we have a mystery opponent. I think I said Jey Uso when I was talking because that's who I wrote down. I think it's going to be Jey Uso. I think Jey Uso's going to be the guy who gets inserted into this as the mystery guy. And I think Jey Uso wins his first round matchup, leaving us with a second round matchup of Sami Zayn versus, I'm saying, Carmelo Hayes, and Cody Rhodes versus Jey Uso, which will be a great television match that they can promote. On the first side, Sami Zayn's going to beat Carmelo Hayes or whoever that is. On the second side, I think here's where it gets interesting. I think Jey Uso upsets Cody Rhodes, and I'm not sure how it happens. I'm not sure what happens. Something will happen. Jey Uso will win this match, and it's going to set up a very, very, very interesting Sami Zayn versus Jey Uso match, where I think it's going to be Sami Zayn who turns heel based on the hints we've gotten from Karrion Kross and those situations. I think Sami Zayn will finally give in because he wants to become world champion. And I think ultimately what that's going to do, Sami Zayn wins the King of the Ring tournament. He gets a world title shot. And I think by de facto, they're going to try to turn Gunther to the baby face. And at SummerSlam, we're going to do Gunther versus a heel Sami Zayn, where a heel Sami Zayn is going to come out on top, and we're going to get another one of these big title turns at SummerSlam, where ultimately it could be immediate. It literally could be immediate that, and if they don't turn Sami Zayn, they could still run him as a babyface. I think that Seth Rollins cashes in immediately on Sami Zayn, causing him to lose the title, so he gets it on his resume, but I don't know if Sami's going to actually get a run. All right, the last thing before we get out of here, Milwaukee Mike asked the question on Discord, so I'm going to pose it to the rest of the community. I want you guys to leave me with who has the single best wrestling entrance of all time in WWE, AEW, TNA, whatever company you want to use. I just want to know who has the best wrestling entrance of all time. We will discuss that answers next week. But that's all I've got for you guys this week. Make sure to like and subscribe to the channel. We're working on some programming stuff. For right now, you're getting one show a week, and I'm kind of filling out the schedule and things like that. But for now, you'll get this one short show a week until we are ready to announce exactly what the channel looks like in the upcoming future. But like, comment, share, jump into the Discord. Let us know your thoughts on what we talked about. Other than that, I am the Notorious D. This has been the Casual Wrestling Show, and I'm out of here.